Um, how do I go ahead and share my PowerPoint?
I'm passing you the baton right now.
Oh, okay. That's what it was asking me.
Yeah.
Oh, here it goes. That's what this is.
Yep.
So I have to just download this, but I have a short presentation today that's just an introduction to using USA Jobs, and I have some other job sites for the cultural resources field. You could spend hours and hours talking about USA Jobs. So I'm just going to give a short introduction, kind of like a tour of the site, and then some tips about how to put together federal resumes and show you some good sites that I found that have examples, because the best way is to see examples of federal resumes. And I'm not sure what Jeanette was going to cover, and I don't want to repeat what she would cover. Jeanette, what were you going to focus on?
Actually, I found out about the call earlier today, so I wasn't even really prepared to speak, but I was prepared to just kind of fill in some gaps if people had any questions. So
okay,
feel free to cover as much territory as possible.
Okay, all right.
Thanks.
So, can you see my screen?
I cannot. No, my computer isn't.
Yeah,
okay.
but I can see your screen, so it is being recorded and it is being broadcast.
Oh, excellent. Okay, great. So everyone can see this, today's date? I'll take that as a yes. Okay, so USA Jobs is the Usajobs.gov is the official job site for federal positions. So all federal positions are posted on USA Jobs. Agencies might have their own sites for jobs or their own application sites, but you would get to them through USA Jobs. So again, all positions are on USA Jobs. People often ask me about certain jobs, and I say, I don't know, check USA Jobs. They will all be posted on USA Jobs. So those are federal positions and internships. So, USA Jobs can be very frustrating, especially to new users. If I were able to, I would survey all the participants right now and ask if you've ever tried using USA Jobs and see some responses. But if you haven't, this is the website usajobs.gov, and for applying to federal jobs, you would put together a federal resume. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. So in kind of the resume world, there's the federal resume for U.S. government, and there's kind of all other private sector resumes, and they are very different. And I have a good website I'll show you where it actually shows the difference between the two. So this is usajobs.gov, and I'm just going to briefly show you the main page and some tools. So this, when you hit usajobs.gov, this is what you'll see, and you can search for jobs by job title, skills, the agency. You can search by location. There is also, as you'll see, a students and recent graduate page. So that'll bring you to be able to search for pathways positions, which I'm not going to get into in detail. There's just too much. But you can also do an advanced search. And in an advanced search, you can search for jobs, and then search by salary or pay grade. So let's say you're looking for a more entry-level position, you can select maybe I would search on a pay grade on the GS scale. So maybe, 5 to 9 or generally entry level for a particular position. So let's just practice. Let's see if we wanted to see what was available in the National Park Service for the general public. Okay. So you would get a search that looks like this. It'll tell you basic information. Reading is really important when it comes to Usajobs. You have to make sure you read the announcement. These are just the highlights of the announcement. It'll tell you basic information about the position. So let's look at one. Let's look at one position. Okay. So if you're just getting started and have a position you want to apply for, the first thing I would say to do is to print out the entire position. Print it out. Is there a print button? I don't know if there's a print button. But print out the entire announcement. This is the entire announcement. It's long. Print it all out. Not only will you need the actual language in the announcement, but often once positions are closed, they'll be removed from Usajobs. So if you want to go back and see what you applied for, you won't have access to the entire announcement. So it's really good information for you to have that announcement. So here you'll see the salary range, the GS level, location, and then you want to get down here and look at where the position is located, what the job duties are. Make sure you read it all. Make sure you are qualified. And then we're going to scroll down and find the second part of the announcement. Where is it on this one?
Looking for additional information.
I'm looking for the questionnaire. Huh.
I'm not seeing it on this one.
I'm not seeing it on this one either.
I think they moved it to the additional information.
Did they? Thank you.
Was that graded? Thank you.
Problem.
No, it's not there. It's quite odd.
Over on the right.
I'm sorry?
On the right.
I think it's on the right if you scroll to the top.
Oh, oh my gosh. Response to assessment questionnaire. That's what I'm looking for. Here it is. Wow, they made it a little difficult. Anyway, so I just learned something new that you all just learned as well. The Occupational Questionnaire, which every position has, is now under required documents. And what I recommend you do is view that questionnaire when you are preparing to apply, and print all of this out as well, because you're going to need this language, all of this language, for your resume. So print this all out. So this is the questionnaire that will be part of the application. So you get to see essentially the part of this application before you apply. So this is what you're going to have to answer. Your biographic information. This is the easy stuff. And then we're going to get into the occupational position. So you're going to make sure you, again, read the entire occupational questionnaire before you apply. You may read through this and realize that you are actually not qualified. And if you think you're not qualified, if you know you're not qualified, it's not really worth applying. It's unfortunate, but it's not worth applying. So you want to make sure that you can, that these questions, that these tasks that they list here, that you've done these and you can put these in your resume, that your resume can show that you've done this stuff. So the meat of the occupational questionnaire are these questions, and you have to evaluate yourself about using the A, B, C, and D. So A being you've not had education or training in this task. To E, I am regarded as an expert. And the advice that was given to me that's really helpful for a lot of people is to not underestimate yourself. A lot of us have a tendency to do that, to think that even though we've done it, well, we're not really an expert. You know, who is an expert? What is an expert? You know, I mean, it's not the time to get philosophical about this. Give yourself a lot of credit. So give yourself credit if you've done this stuff. Don't undersell yourself. It's really easy to do that, and a lot of us have tendencies to do that. So you're going to want to print all of this out, review this, and then start putting together a federal resume. So I'm going to flip back to my PowerPoint and show you two websites that I think have fantastic examples of federal resumes. And that's a website, a company called Resume Place. And then the other site is the Partnership for Public Services Go Government site. So it's their site about applying to the federal government. And the Partnership for Public Service is a nonprofit that promotes the service that public sector does. So they have a very friendly website. So the first website I'm going to go to is the sample resume site. So this is from the Resume Place. And a federal resume looks really different from a private sector resume. So let me show you the private sector resume. Okay, so if everyone can see this, I hope everyone can see this. So I know this is really small right here, unfortunately. But on the left, they have an example of a traditional resume, something that you might have submitted to ACE for your internship. On the side, you'll see that it's fairly short. It has bullet points for each position that you've had, maybe just a couple of sentences. On the right-hand side, you'll see examples of federal resumes, and you'll see this is actually also in bulleted format. You can also write in paragraph format, but it's much more detailed. And this site, this is the Partnership for Public Service site, has really good information about each section of the Usajobs application page. So another piece of information that I will give you, and that the Partnership for Public Service says, is that we strongly suggest you use Resume Builder on Usajobs.gov. So when you're applying to a position, you can either upload a resume or build your resume in Resume Builder, and we recommend doing that on Usajobs. It will take a while, but it'll guide you through the resume writing process and make sure that everything is complete, because you don't want to spend all this time applying to a federal job and then miss out on something. So it's kind of, go ahead.
Paloma, you do that once and then it's saved to your information.
You can save these resumes. However, each resume should really be tailored for the position you're applying to. However, a lot of entry-level positions do have similar duties. So if you feel that you've written a position let's say for interpretation at a site, and you save that site, and then you see another position, and you read through it thoroughly, and you see that it's extremely similar to a position you've applied for, you can use that same resume, but only if you think it's very similar. And I would strongly encourage you to even modify that to make it extra tailored to the position you're applying. So on this great site, you can see a preview of what the Usajobs Resume Builder looks like. So that's why I love this site. You can go and it's very small font, but you'll see what it looks like when you're putting together the resume. So you'll see that you can put in your work experience, your employer name here, and the address. You have to do this for each position, education. So I like this site. Read through that. And then let me go to this other site, the Resume Place position. So this is an example of a federal resume. So it keeps switching back and forth, but it's essentially the same in that when the resume builder is finished and the resume builder on the Usajobs site puts together your resume, it may look something similar to this. And this is what you can prepare when you're uploading information about your position. So you'll see that what they've done here, the Resume Place, and the Resume Place is a company that essentially helps people write resumes, and they have lots of information on their website about federal resumes. You'll see here that they have big, bold tasks that are starting their resume here. So these are actions. They've taken these words directly from the questionnaire and the announcement. And so be a word thief. Be a word thief when it comes to putting together your resume. Look through the Occupational Questionnaire and describe the tasks you've done for other internships using some of the tasks that they're asking you about in the Occupational Questionnaire. And you want to be truthful, but you do want to make sure you have some of these great keywords here. So what they've done is combined larger tasks like project management, analysis, and workflow management. Like those are really those are big tasks that are very general. So they've taken these big general tasks and then grouped them with other tasks, more specific tasks related to the position here. This guy was a systems analyst. So if we go back to our announcement, our Occupational Questionnaire, and this is just a questionnaire that I pulled up. So I haven't seen this one before. But I'm looking through here. You want to make sure you read all this, and if you can say, yeah, I've done this. I've done this. You can maybe start to group your tasks. Because, again, you want to make sure that you cover all of these tasks, or as many of these tasks as you can in your resume to show that you are qualified. So I'm not going to go into detail, but because we're on limited time, but I do want to show you those two websites. I do also want to show and share that Resume Place has free webinars on writing resumes. No, these are for purchase, but they do have free resume writing webinars that are free and are good. I mean, they're half an hour, kind of entry level. I don't know where it is. I'm sorry. But they do offer webinars, often during lunchtime on the East Coast. Sorry. Lunchtime East Coast. So it's somewhere on their website. But again, this is a good website to look at examples of resumes.
I think a key point here is that we can always go back, and when applying for a new job, Paloma hit it right on the head. We need to change our resumes for the jobs we're applying to. And that's something that in the private sector you may not have experienced as much of, because a lot of the time you just make one and then you have it and then you add jobs as you go along, but you don't necessarily go and tweak what you had already on there. We can always be revisiting and looking at new resources, taking webinars, those kind of things, and really tailoring our materials to the positions that you all will be applying for, because that's what's going to make you stand out as a good applicant.
Right. And so one of the reasons that the federal resume doesn't look like a private sector resume is because the people looking at your resume, HR, in the federal sector, they may not know anything about the position that you're applying to. So they don't know the technical terms. They don't know acronyms. They don't know. They can't decipher from a private sector type resume whether or not you're qualified. That's why you have to be explicit and clear about what you've done. Let's see. Another tip I would give, and I just mentioned it, is to spell out acronyms. I know there's a lot of acronyms in the government, but spell it out. Even in the Park Service, if you're putting the acronym for the park, spell out the park, spell it all out. So print out the job announcement, the Occupational Questionnaire, spell everything out. Let's see. Those are my major tips for federal resumes. And I did want to share some job posting sites for non-federal resumes, and this is tailored to the cultural resources field. So PreserveNet has a lot of all types of internships in preservation and archaeology and museums. HistPres is a great site. For some reason, it's not currently operating. And then here's some information about what public history is from the National Council on Public History. And there we go. And then I have a whole bunch of sites, other types of job posting sites that have internships and non-federal cultural resources positions. So museum sites, the National Trust, archaeology, archivists, architectural historians. I also use Usajobs there. But I did want to share all these websites, and some of them do cross-post, but sometimes you do find new job postings. HNet is humanities. It's more academic jobs, so if you're looking to teach, that's the site for that. And then this link, museumjobs.com, very vague, but it has international job postings for museums. So that was my short and sweet for federal resumes. Again, you could speak for hours about putting together a federal resume, and it is a skill. It's something you learn by doing it over and over again, unfortunately, sometimes. So don't be discouraged if it's really hard at first. It is a difficult skill for even a senior job seekers.
Great. Thanks, Paloma. Before we really open it up for questions, I just want to introduce everybody. Paloma did an excellent job. We know who she is. Great job talking about federal resumes. We also have Shane Barrow on the line, who is the director of Epic, and he worked for BLM for many years and is a great resource for all things about the federal application process. And we also have Jeanette Shackelford, a youth specialist from the Utah State Office, BLM. Thank you so much. Shane, do you want to jump in and introduce any more of yourself, or do you think that was good?
And I'm done with my presentation, so you can remove, the screen if you'd like.
Done.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim. Jeanette, would you like to say anything real quick about your job, what you do, how you're involved with BLM?
Oh, sure. My background's in archaeology. I've been working for the BLM for about 12 years now. And since 2011, I've been the youth program coordinator, the state lead for Utah. And that kind of involves everything from outreach to education to employment and all that stuff. So my job overlaps HR, and I work with them quite a bit with employment. And I'm also the federal coordinator for the Public Land Corps. So when the kids get their 640 hours, I'm the one that signs off on it. And I've actually seen a few success stories here.
Excellent.
Great. Can you maybe just give a brief introduction to the Public Land Corps, the PLC Hiring Authority, and how you may have seen it used?
The way we've used it in Utah, the way I've seen it work, and ACE has actually been one of the best partners in this, is that, our field offices will have a position, it has to be like a conservation, like a natural resource conservation project, something that will get the kids.
Or cultural
resources. And cultural resources too. And it gives the kids some administrative office time. I think it's like 120 hours in the office, but it's also and correct me if I'm wrong, Shane, it's 640 hours total that the kids have to be, outdoors and engaged in this one project. And then after that, they have this Public Land Corps authority. They have a certificate, and they can apply non-competitively for appropriate federal jobs that are geared towards students. And we've been advertising a few of those, like wildlife biologist, cultural resource specialist, and they're like laddered positions. So they start out at kind of still at a mentor level, and they just kind of work their way up the ladder. And I've seen that around the state, and we're kind of getting the hang of it. It takes a lot of coordination with HR, but I have seen it work.
So I can add a little bit more to that. This is Tim. The hour requirements are you have to have 120 hours in a PLC position. That can be an internship or on a crew or any type of position where you're working on a what is called a PLC approved agreement or position. And then the 640 hours, though, is any kind of public service. So whether it be working with nonprofits or whether you're actually working with a federal agency as a volunteer or you're working in different things as a volunteer, all those hours count towards the total hours that you need for the PLC hiring authority. And then once like she said, once you get all that, you get your certificate, and that gives you, the great thing about it is it's non-competitive. So you're not going up against all those other things, all those other obstacles sometimes that are there within the federal hiring. It kind of makes it a little bit of a fast-track process to where you can get yourself in front of somebody for a position rather quickly.
And I should mention that the program is only eligible, you are only eligible for this hiring authority if you're 25 years of age and under. Unfortunately, it's the law. It's a law that stated this. So if you're over 25 right now, you're not eligible.
Two very important points. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Shane, are you there?
I am here. Sorry about that.
No problem. Anything you'd like to talk about?
Well, I definitely want to get to the question section. So I'll do a little bit of intro because I want everybody to know that the resources that we have here are fairly broad. And so, the process that's being presented is a complex and challenging process. It does not favor young graduates. It really is pretty exclusive process. It, as Paloma put very eloquently, but I always say that the Usajobs favors the dishonest. She says just don't underestimate yourself. So all of these really complex issues. I would like to talk to and answer questions to people that are out there today, and talk about pathways, and I can answer questions about PLC. But that could be its own discussion on PLC. But if people do have questions out there, and then also as we go through this process, I wanted to have BLM and Park Service. It'd be nice to have other agencies, but I've worked with all agencies. The process is a little bit different. The actual application process isn't different, but how people view different agencies, or how different agencies view applicants and how they move through the system really depends on these very different structured HR departments within each of the interior agencies or other agencies. So keeping that all in mind, we have a great wealth of knowledge and experience here. Whenever you're ready to go into that phase, I really would like to take some questions. I'm sure we all would, and I would love to see some healthy discussion even between our presenters and question answerers, because there's always, what's going to be great to present to everybody here is that we all even internally disagree at times on how things need to be done or how things should be done or how things really are, because we're all sort of victims of this OPM process that they put down upon the interior, all agencies, all federal agencies, to try to one size fits all a process that doesn't necessarily work very well in all capacities. So I'll turn that back over to you, Katie, to lead the direction of the conversation and call it good.
Excellent. Well, I'll start off with a question, and then hopefully we can get some folks on the line ask some as well. I guess, we should start with what is the best way to make your application stand out? What is the best way to actually move on to that next stage in the application process?
This is Paloma. I would say make sure you're qualified. So don't make them look at a resume that doesn't I'm putting that sounds wrong, but to make sure that you hit all the tasks that are in the occupational questionnaire. You want to make sure that spelling, grammar, that's all correct. Have more than your set of eyes look at the resume. Ask different people to look at your resume, because you can't catch everything. So you want to make sure that it reads. It's not, enticing reading, but you want to make sure that it makes sense. You have grammatical and spelling errors corrected. You're not. You want to make sure that you are explicit in describing projects you've worked on as they relate to the occupational questionnaire. So if you can quantify stuff, I surveyed X amount of miles by walking and doing, step by step, explain what you've done. And this is again part of the skill. So if you can accurately describe tasks, I think that'll enhance your resume. As far as standing out, I think that'll help.
Okay, Carrie Dean has a question. She asks, I've heard here at my internship, now at the Forest Service, and before people at the National Archives, that it's almost impossible to get a federal job or actually even an interview without veterans preference points. Advice for those of us who do not have those points and over 25 for PLC to even get an interview, or is this going to be a continuous challenge to get through the next steps after the resume and the hiring process?
Hey, Shane, this is, yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is Jeanette with BLM, and I just wanted to acknowledge that question as one we get a lot. And what we tell our students, especially those who are over the age of 25, is when you fill out your resume, I think a lot of students think that shorter is better, and it is that way in the real world, the non-government world. But with the government, longer resumes are almost a good thing because HR does research all of your qualifications. And Paloma was right when she said don't, pad your resume, because they do research it and they will throw it out if they think that you've exaggerated your qualities. But try and match the language in your resume as close as you can to the PD and answer those questions very specifically, because that will help HR immensely. A lot of them aren't really familiar with the positions, and so the more you match the language with the position description, that's going to make it stand out.
Yeah, exactly. There is a word limit, I do have to say, on the resume builder. I think it's 5,000 characters per position, but that still is fairly long. So you have 5,000 characters for each work description. Don't make it short. Make it, don't make stuff up, but make things really clear. You could explain tasks to people. Research. I've done research in archives. What goes into research in archives? Planning what you're going to look for. What does survey mean? What does documenting a building mean? What are the steps involved with that? You can explain that, especially if some of that language is in the Occupational Questionnaire.
Hannah asked, she's been told by BLM HR in California that a resume over 5 pages won't even be looked at. Is that true?
I've never heard that. I mean, if you're doing Resume Builder, it will let you know when you've hit the word limit, so you can't really go wrong if you're using Resume Builder, because they can't, like if you've had 10 jobs that relate to the position, you can put in all those 10 jobs up to the 5,000 word limit, and that's easily over 5 pages. So I'd say use Resume Builder. Now, don't put 5,000 characters in for a job that has nothing to do with your position that you're applying for. Do describe what you've done, but you don't need to go into as much detail for positions that maybe was a summer job that really had nothing to do. Do still include that. Do put that down as work experience, but you don't have to write the full extent on that. But again, using USA, the resume builder, you can't go wrong. Good question.
Jeanette, have you
Katie, can I butt in here first? I don't want to leave Carrie's question and move on quite yet.
Yeah, go for it, Shane.
Yeah, and because I think this is a very important perspective from our side. Basically, we are partners, but we're outside, and we're here to represent the people trying to get into these agencies. And that question, your question is, it's yes and no. And just give me a minute to kind of go into this. So for people there at the National Archives, people in urban areas, people in Portland, people in Salt Lake City, people in D.C., people in federal facilities that are in populated areas where there's high job competition, where maybe the requirements for the positions aren't as severely academic or whatever, there's going to be a tremendous amount of competition for those positions. And even if you're merit, it can be difficult to compete for those positions. And this is the point that I make to every young person trying to get into the federal agencies. On your path to retirement, you're going to take a lot of different roads. And this is the hardest thing I have, is convincing people that taking a road that isn't headed directly for your goal isn't necessarily the wrong road. And so when people are looking to get into federal service, your goal can be working at the National Archives, but that goal might start in BLM, El Centro, California, where they would be happy to have applicants like you, and you would be incredibly competitive for almost any, especially cultural position, that they would have there. And so that is the biggest sort of hurdle and flaw that I see in young people's thinking now, is that they want that perfect job, that ideal destination right out of the bat. It's not hard to get into federal service. It's hard to get into federal service where everybody else wants to be. So going through these internships is a huge first step, and you're already ahead of the game on a lot of people. But that next step is be willing to move, be willing to do something that you don't think is exactly what you're capable of doing. Apply for places when you look at the job application that says, when you say to yourself, "Ooh, I don't want to work there," everybody else is saying that same thing, and so we might only get 4 or 5 candidates for positions in, say, places like El Centro or Yuma or, rural North Dakota. But it's a great place to start a career. And then you can move internally anywhere you want much more quickly and start developing those relationships. So that was longer than I intended, so I'm going to just stop right there but and move on to we'll turn it back over to Katie.
That's really awesome, Shane. Yeah, I think flexibility is something I hear a lot thrown around, and being flexible, with how you're applying and what you're applying for. Open yourself up for those opportunities. There's always going to be someone out there who is more experienced, more qualified, and more something than you. But if you're open to anything, then stuff will land where you need it to land. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have a few questions. Hold on. So let's get back. I'm trying. We got several questions people have typed up, so I'm going to try to take them in order that they were brought up. The first one was asked about from Reed. Reed said, being graduated and looking forward to how specifically do I use DHA after the internship, and how soon can I start applying for federal jobs?
That's a really great question, Reed, and we're actually not going to go into the specifics of DHA in this webinar. We're going to have a separate webinar just with our DHA folks where we can talk about exactly what that's going to look like and placement and things like that. So can we put a cork in that? We can talk about that a little bit later. If you have jobs that you're thinking about specifically, feel free to reach out to me and Kim, and we can talk more about that moving forward.
And for our NPS folks, unfortunately, NPS does not have a direct hire authority to work with right now. So you can store that in the back of your brain.
Okay, Graydon asks, he's heard that on a position there that is listed both merit and DEU, that the HR department refers both lists on to the hiring official, and that they choose one of those lists to hire from. So even after getting referred, you may have to wait and see if they choose the list that you are on to hire from. Is that true?
What's a DEU?
Where it's open to the public, so they can apply as well.
Oh, I see.
That is true. This is Shane. That is very, very true. And that is one way where people can take a look at the public and see who's out there. But if they want to, they can just can that list and hire internally off the merit list, which PLC members applying for would actually be on.
Oh yeah, I'm just wondering because I don't have my authority yet. So thanks, Shane.
The other question was, how long after being referred to the hiring official should it take to hear back, and when is it appropriate to call and ask on a job you were referred Onward for?
That will certainly depend on each agency and even on each HR office. Some work faster than others. I would say after you should call only if you received the email about being referred, and I would wait at least. I would wait 2 to 3 weeks. I don't know. Jeanette, do you have advice on this?
I was just going to say the same thing. I think it depends on like the specific that HR office, whether they're understaffed or whether just if the right people are there to get it processed. In our office, it's about 3 weeks.
Okay.
That's what I would recommend.
And call the HR contact on the announcement. Another good reason to print out the announcement.
Tim, did we have another question?
I think that's it. We've so far covered all the questions people asked via text.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. Does someone want to talk about exactly how that process? Like, we use the word referral a lot. So once you apply, then you may be referred, and then what should people be on the lookout for?
I don't have as much information on this. You will receive updates from Usajobs via the federal agency about your status. So you should get, and actually that Partnership for Public Service site, I think, has a list of the emails you should get. So I think it's 4. 1 to confirm your application, whether or not you're qualified, whether or not you've been referred, and then maybe your selection or your your last email that you've been disqualified or not interviewed. I don't know how quickly some agencies will elect to interview. It probably depends on the supervisor that's hiring, and on the HR. It can be quickly if they want to hire quickly, if they're pressed and motivated to hire quickly. It can take a long time. So it really depends on the position. But you can expect an interview for sure. And I know some positions have panels with several interviewers, but I'm not sure how long or how many interviews. Probably very dependent on the position. And I do want to address the cover letter. The cover letter is not really for HR, it's for the hiring official. It's not required as a document when you apply for position. So it's not something that you have to upload onto Usajobs, but it doesn't hurt if you have one, and if you think you'll make it to the, if you'll be referred. If you'll be referred, it can only help. But I'd say if you have a cover letter, and you feel passionately about a position and you think you can do a cover letter really well, to go ahead and upload it. But again, it's not a required document.
I wanted to say something real quick about, from my kind of outsider's experience watching you people who are in internships, and I didn't grow up in the whole conservation or cultural resources world. I come from an IT background. I come from software development and that kind of thing. So watching this process, I can see how people are so very frustrated with it. But what I want you guys to know, and everything I've observed and talking with Paloma and talking with Kim and all these people that are working hard in these agencies, is there are so many positions available. You really just have to keep your options open. Like Shane really said, this path is not a linear path. It's not an A, B, C, D path. It's going to take you all over the place. But what you're going to really find is, if you open up your mind and open up your experiences to these different places, you're going to get so much more wealth of knowledge. You're going to get so much more experience that when you do go to apply for the position that you really want, you're going to be so much outclassing everybody else that's applying for that position. You just have to be patient and you have to work through it. Look, you guys have already done one of the toughest parts, which is to get selected. You guys were in a competitive hiring for the CRDIP program and for the VHA program. So you guys have already gone through a very difficult process and you succeeded. So now you just need to take that experience that you've learned, take all the stuff that you're learning in these positions and apply it so that you can move forward. And trust me, Paloma and Kim and Shane and Katie are very, very dedicated to your success, and they will definitely give you as much help as they possibly can to make sure that you are successful moving forward. So you lean on them, use that experience, use those tools. When you get frustrated, reach out to somebody. Don't just try to take it all on yourself. This is a very collaborative experience throughout your whole time in federal service. It's not just now, but throughout your whole time. Everybody has to lean on everybody else. I'm sure oh, sorry, I forgot your name from BLM. That she can
Jeanette.
attest to. Jeanette, thank you. That
Oh,
Jeanette can
yeah.
attest to that. She relies so much on help from other people in BLM to be successful in what she's trying to accomplish as well. So really don't think that you're in this alone, that it really is a collaborative experience for everybody involved.
And I would like to just, everything you said, I was nodding the whole time. I'm an archaeologist. I've got my master's in archaeology, but I didn't start out as an archaeologist with the BLM. I was a hazmat coordinator. I didn't even know what hazmat stood for, but I was willing, that's what I wanted to do to get into the agency, was like learn completely different. And as I worked my way up, and I finally did ladder into an archaeology position, and I felt like I had this depth of knowledge that was pretty unique and pretty cool. I learned a lot about the whole agency by kind of hopping around until I got to where I ultimately wanted to be.
Excellent. Does anyone, that was awesome advice that I think we can all take away from that. Some really, really great stuff. Were there any other questions people wanted to get in while we still have these really great folks on the line with us? No? Okay. I mean, I have one more, and I think it's an important one. What are some of the biggest mistakes people can make when they're in this process, either in your experience or that you've seen others do? Or
mistakes. Actually applying for positions takes a long time. So a lot, of several hours, build your resume and to apply. Make sure you answer all the questions, and they do give you a chance to go back and make sure you've answered all the questions, and take that opportunity to go back and make sure you've answered all the questions, because if you miss a question or answer, are you a U.S. citizen? If you answer no, or if you answer something else, you may automatically be disqualified. So even something really minor that has nothing to do with your resume will disqualify you. So make sure you actually fill it out completely, and it can be overwhelming. Again, it takes a long time. That's a big one.
Hey, Shane here, and it's actually a really great question. One of the things that happens almost always in this process, many of you may know, is that you get frustrated with the process and keep running into walls and aren't sure what you're doing right. That can lead to doing lazy applications. That's also one problem. But I really want to focus on that frustration, and the culture within federal offices amongst federal employees is often one of complacency, and a lot of people sit around the water cooler and talk negatively about that process. And for you guys, being young, trying to get in the door, do not engage in that negativity of that process. Stay as far away, stay as positive as possible, because at some point, if you do get an interview, they're going to call one of those people, and they're going to be like, they did a good job, but they were always really negative about the process, and, it will come back to bite you. So stay positive, stay disengaged from those negative conversations that happen around the water cooler, because they happen in every single office. There's discontent in every single location, even if it's just an individual. So really, really important, and I see it all the time. And you never know why you didn't get a job. But if you get an interview and don't get a job and you think you did a good job, it could be because of an action that you took, a single action that doesn't reflect your overall ability or personality. You guys are being held to a higher standard right now, and so you need to hold yourself to that higher standard.
I would also make sure that you, again, believe in yourself when you are and when you're answering that occupational questionnaire, don't sell yourself. A lot of you will be applying for entry-level positions that you are qualified for. You're qualified for them. So don't answer if you think you can answer A and B for all of them. A being that you don't have experience or training on the task. B being that I forget what it says. Maybe you've done it once, or I'm not sure. But if you're really not qualified, don't apply. And that's something you may want to talk over with somebody else about whether or not you can put together a resume for a position. You may find that you can really do that, and it may take talking out a resume with somebody. But don't sell yourself short.
Carrie had one more question.
Go for it.
Okay. She said, on the federal resume, should we list this internship and past ones, paid or unpaid, distinctively as internship, or should we just label it as experience? Does it really matter where the experience comes from?
That's a really good question. So there isn't a special section for internship. So it's all under work experience. So you would enter the internship just like any other work position. They'll see that it's an internship when you put in that you only worked for 3 months. Or you could put, cultural resource intern at, so-and-so national park. You can put intern in the title, but you should absolutely include the work that you've done just as you would for any other position that qualifies you for the job, unpaid or paid. Volunteer work counts. Absolutely, and that's another great way to get experience in these tasks and types of job skills is to volunteer. So absolutely put qualified volunteer work.
Yeah, but one thing that people try to do on their volunteer work, and that's absolutely great advice. Some people, they'll have a weekend project that they'll volunteer on, and as opposed to a 3-month internship, and that. You'll want to put that on there if it's relevant, but don't try to hide the fact that it's a few days because, when we see those, you kind of start looking into them and you realize somebody's resume is 5 pages long of experience, but they're, 20 different weekends in 20 different places. All great, but don't try to hide that because then it leaves the reader questioning your ethics.
And if you do the resume builder, you are forced to put in a date range. So again, using the resume builder, you are forced to answer everything. You can't hide. That's the best way to go.
All right. Well, it looks like we're a little bit over an hour. Jeanette, did you have anything to say about any biggest mistakes you make or any advice that you would offer these folks?
I agree with what Shane and Paloma said. I guess the biggest mistakes I've seen is sometimes they don't, share everything that you've done, including the volunteer projects. And if it was an internship, it was an internship. Or if you were a leader, or if you, taught youth or whatever. I mean, all that stuff counts, and so don't sell yourself short.
Awesome. Any last questions? Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you to our speakers for being on the line here to answer questions and talk a little bit about the process. As you all know, you all have the contact information for all the folks. If you have any questions after the webinar, we were recording this, so we will be putting this up on our resources on Slack as well. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.